Well, first of all, it was comical that the mics didn't work.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Like, we know the first person to get doged. That'll be the.
Welcome back to the Fresh Freedom Podcast, where we bring you an insider's perspective with the freedom-focused representatives who are fighting for conservative values and defending your constitutional rights. Joining me is Josh Burkeen and from Oklahoma, Andrew Clyde from Georgia, and Michael Cloud from Texas. Andrew and Michael, welcome to the Fresh Freedom Podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you.
Great to be here.
Great to be with you guys again.
So, news of the day is that this hero, Daniel Penny, was acquitted finally today. It's amazing that this guy went through hell just to defend these people that were being attacked. Mm-hmm. You got your thoughts?
Yeah, it's great he's acquitted. You know, I was getting nervous over the weekend, especially being in New York and what we've seen lately coming out of there. So that's good news. But you and I know, and we've seen up here, the process is often the punishment. So there's still a burden he's had to carry, or the legal fees, everything he's had to deal with for a case that shouldn't have never been brought.
And now his name is everywhere. Everywhere he goes, people
Security is needed now, and so
he's like the Kyle Rittenhouse, the modern day Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, it's great that this has happened, that he was able to see justice, but at the same time, it's not like his life just goes back to
his
normal.
life has totally changed forever.
Right.
Well, hopefully it'll turn into a blessing for him. You know, that he's got a platform now to talk about the madness that our culture is operating in. When a guy who's a hero, who has similar background with you, military background, and he's just operating out of instinct, trying to save lives, and his own government doesn't see the value in that.
It just goes to show you how corrupt, literally, the New York justice system is. You got Alvin Bragg as a prosecutor here. All right, here, he went against President Trump on, quote, trumped-up charges, where they really didn't even know exactly what the charge was. Mm-hmm. And now on this one right here, thankfully, the jury saw the truth and came back with a not guilty verdict. So now Mr. Penny is free. And, he should be hailed truly as a hero for standing up to this person on the subway that was threatening other people's lives and, restrained him. It's unfortunate that the person died, but I think it's very important that people do stand up and that people engage when other people's lives are in danger. Police aren't going to be there 24/7, immediately to call and to intervene in a situation. Sometimes citizens have to do that to protect other citizens.
Did you all see the Black Lives Matter press conference that they held?
No.
Screaming and hollering and just the rage and the anger and saying that...
Calling for violence.
Yeah. And so it does say something where maybe we are maturing as a society. Maybe we're maturing as a society that the jury didn't bring in the consideration of we've got to appease what could be potential rioting. And I think we've seen that in years past, in decades past. And I hope we are maturing as a society. You do the right thing, and then if somebody wants to go and burn vehicles on a street, then you bring in law and order also.
That's correct.
Yeah. Another gentleman that made the news today. So you have Daniel Penny, who we consider a hero. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, this next guy I consider a zero, and that is Luigi Mangione, I guess is how you say his name. He's the lunatic, or like the
hitman.
He reminds me of Ted Kaczynski. Like, he's an Ivy League kid who has several degrees. My assumption, he spent way too much time in college.
Yeah.
He went nuts.
Yeah, like you said, he had a lot going for him, except for the fact that he went to some Ivy League school. But other than that, he had a lot going for him, and it's just crazy to see, and this has kind of actually been a recurring theme in instances like this, sadly, that you see these leftists just
get brainwashed.
Yeah, get brainwashed and do crazy things. Yeah.
I mean, we saw a bunch of them protesting here. In D.C. I was, when you look at, it's like a lot of these are privileged, college students, and yet they're being radicalized by, in the case of here, they're being radicalized by Hamas without direct knowledge or understanding of what they're doing. They were certainly carrying out the will of Hamas.
And they're certainly perpetrating violence. That's the thing. Well, what are they teaching on these college campuses where all of a sudden it's okay to take someone else's life? I mean, this was the CEO of a company. Well, they might not have agreed with what the company did, but to go out and literally murder the CEO of a company is not just disgraceful. That's terrible. I mean, you can't do that in this society, in a free and open society. And then, fortunately, he wasn't, though he was educated at an Ivy League school, he wasn't smart enough, to get rid of his fake IDs, all right? And they found some pretty solid evidence on him. So, hat goes off to law enforcement and the way that they were able to put these clues together and to track this person down and to bring him to justice.
Then I think he left DNA on a drink. Isn't that part of the evidence that they utilized? I think that's right. I think he.
Yeah, I think he bought a water bottle at Starbucks
Yeah,
or something.
he didn't do the Make America Healthy Again Celsius 10 calorie choice, but he probably did like Andrew Clyde did with his 200 plus calorie Dr. Pepper over there.
Okay, let's not besmirch
I think it was a
Dr.
water
Pepper.
bottle.
Eric, can I ask you a question really quickly?
Yeah.
Freshmen no more.
That's fresh freedom. Are we going to send
You're
a
gonna-
poll out there and how
you're
we're going
gonna
to
come up with
upgrade
a
the
new
name?
name?
What do
Yeah.
we-
I
what do
think
we-
that we could pivot to that, freedom should always be fresh, right? Always new freedom, right? New freedom. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Let's just not call it sophomore.
Well, y'all had quite a year, too. I mean, I remember y'all just waiting a few days, like, are we ever going to get sworn in?
It is.
First, and
Yeah.
then not to mention all the news that's happened. And
we were
what
almost
we've seen.
freshmen forever, yeah. That's good.
We didn't have the, J6 stuff that you guys dealt with, or
No,
the COVID crisis that you had to deal with.
I think these last two terms in Congress, we have seen more historic and unusual events, literally in the last 4 years, than we have seen in Congress ever in 4 years put together. I mean, you could just name them. Plenty of them to deal with.
Yeah. But one thing that we can, celebrate as we celebrate New Year's is, and in these holidays, is the end of the Biden era,
Amen.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
So looking back at the last 2 years, we began with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. We had the disaster that was the southern border. We've had inflation through the roof. We've had crime surges. We've had all of this
China virus.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
we had his abuse during China during the China virus.
Yeah.
The
We had
way
a
in which
defense secretary that went MIA. We had
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We
Lloyd
had Pete
Austin.
Buttigieg,
Yeah,
leave his post.
We have a military that's advocating for sex change operations on the
Yeah.
taxpayer dime
Right. For people who could never deploy.
that they can't deploy.
Right.
I mean, you've got the impeachment of Mayorkas,
Yep.
all right, which was stuffed by the Democrat-controlled Senate. But fortunately, you will not see Democrat control in the House, the Senate, or the presidency. This will be a new era for all of us we have never experienced before. A
Yeah.
Republican trifecta, not since 2017 when Trump first came in. And
Eric's-
this time we're unified behind him instead of infighting.
Eric's ready. I just noticed seconds ago the Trump golf. Where do you get one of those?
My father-in-law got this for me
Wow.
for Christmas.
Father-in-law, if you're
2 years
watching.
ago.
Yeah.
Josh Burkeen.
Christmas is coming.
I don't
a
even
few days
play
away.
golf. I don't even play golf.
Sharp.
Ooh.
But the
I don't either.
truth is that golf
like
gear is the
appropriation
best
then?
gear. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like golf gear, usually the best fabric, the best.
Yeah, looks nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we're ending the Biden era. Hopes for this next for this next year? What are your biggest hopes
What's Santa Claus bringing you, Andrew?
for this next administration?
For this next
New
administration,
and Congress.
I truly hope that when Trump brings in the Department of Government Efficiency, that we really focus on government efficiency. We focus on reduction in spending. We focus on eliminating those parts of the government that are not constitutional.
Yeah.
Those parts of the government that are not authorized, that are funded but not authorized, or their authorization has expired, and so we're funding expired programs. All of that. There's so much anticipation out there. The standard is really high right now, and I hope we live up to it.
Yeah.
I want to live up to it.
So
For the whole Congress.
we had that meeting with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk last week.
Right.
I thought it was historic. You had, you had two billionaires on stage with members of Congress, and what was funny, like they came out swinging. They said,
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember how, you guys might remember better how they put it, but it was, we're not going to do little things.
It's not incrementalism.
We're going to go
Right,
fast.
right,
We're going to
right.
go big, and
Right.
we're going to go hard. And they said all this, and then what I found comical is that when they opened up, well, first of all, it was comical that the mics didn't work.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Like, we know the first person to get doged. Whoever was in charge for the mics that meeting.
I mean, it was awful because like Elon's
super
Musk
tech.
didn't work.
His mic,
Vivek's didn't work.
Yeah.
Only the speaker's mic was working, so they had to like juggle that. And then
Yeah.
they finally got them working. And then when they went to the members of Congress and the audience,
They didn't work
two
either.
of our mics weren't working.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that the attitude is these audiovisual people had one job.
Right. And they couldn't
Pretty
get that
important
right.
meeting. Speaker of the House, richest man in the world,
You might want
another
to
successful.
replace the batteries
You
right
know,
before that meeting.
Or replace the people.
The biggest takeaway from that meeting, and it's come out publicly, is Chip Roy standing at the microphone and saying, "You guys are looking to identify the problem. It's in this room."
That's right.
It's 435 members of the House and 100 United States senators, and so I look forward to let everybody start with a clean slate if we want to,
Right.
but for them to put together their naughty list moving ahead of those that won't support making government efficient.
Yes, when Elon Musk said, there will be, the America PAC is still around and will still be funded. There will be a nice list and there will be a naughty list. And you don't want to be on the naughty list.
Well, that's been my big concern going into this next term because, the president's going to come in, he's going to have his team, they're going to do great things. But it's our job in Congress to make sure that this isn't just a bubble. It's not a reprieve. We've got to come behind the president and codify these things that he wants done. And we've got to have the votes to do it.
Reconciliation.
And one of the things I thought was striking that struck me personally funny was when Elon got up there and he was talking. He was like, how many secretaries and agency heads he's talked to who are they get in position and they're impotent.
They have no power.
But they're fine with it. I mean, just to hold their seat. And I thought, I feel like that's like half of Congress. You
is.
get here, you're going to make a big difference, and then you realize the structure's not really meant to empower members. It's actually meant to kind of roll members.
is.
And in that regard, by extension, the American people. And we have to really fight as members to really have our say into legislation and to be part of the process and those kind of things. But it's going to take that kind of shift in how we do things too.
It
here
is.
in Congress. to
We've
get where
been
we need
having
to go.
a new conversation lately, last few weeks, about how up here the real power is in the staff,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the committees.
Very much
Oh,
so.
absolutely.
And so many of our colleagues are just fine with that because they
don't
just
have
want
to
to be the
work.
figurehead. They don't want to get in the weeds of any of the bills or the legislation or actually have to work.
Right.
They don't want to go to a meeting and negotiate the language of a bill. They just trust their staff to do it. Well, that's where all the power is.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It is crazy, and that's something that needs structurally to change in order for us to be able to represent the people well. You know, right now we have a disaster bill that's being negotiated, and it's speaker staff with appropriation staff with Senate staff. We had that one meeting where we're like,
Right, and there's no
Is there
members.
any elected official in that
None.
room at all?
None. None.
I'm on the appropriation staff. He's on the appropriation
So am
staff.
I.
They won't even give us the information of what's right now being negotiated and proposed in the bill. We have what the president sent over as a request, Biden administration, but where that is and the details of that beyond the line items, that's the kind of things that need to change.
It appears to me like we're going to have this like final, just spending spree before Trump comes in, or the way I put it is
The grants are being spun off right now.
Sent
to the congressional districts to
and it's
encumber
our
our
the
job
drug
to
addicts.
stop it.
The drug addicts are trying to get their final fix before they have to
Yep.
be checked into the rehab, right? Come January 20.
Into DOGE.
Look, I hope that we don't let the American people down. I am very optimistic about the ink by the barrel that Elon has with X. But as some of us are contending with them, and I've said reconciliation for a reason a while ago, the fanciful way of saying it only takes 50 votes in the Senate, that is an opportunity in the next 60 to 90 days that we have to only have 50 votes to cut spending, pairing it with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extension, which is expiring,
Right.
pairing it with any other thing that can reconcile revenue with our spending. If they don't take their work product, insert it into reconciliation, where it only takes 50 votes in the Senate, you only have 53 United States senators, then they will miss the biggest opportunity to actually to go beyond just executive orders to implement their agenda.
Right.
And I hope that this town is full of people, whose constituency that understands that sees that, and says reconciliation is the big gain. And
And the big get out of it should be permanent cuts.
permanent cuts. Because
Right.
always, it's year 5, 6, and 7. They'll do sunsets in the way that they set up, permanency for certain tax elements.
Budgeting gimmick.
And it's a budgeting gimmick to say that all the savings are going to come in year 6, 7, and 8.
The spending's now, the savings always later.
And so
Right.
if we don't lop off, amputate, then what will happen is then the government will just continue to ascend. And so there's a huge opportunity here.
And that's one of the reasons why, when we look at this disaster relief, all right, it's got to be paid for. If we can't start with our own, when will we ever start? If not now, then when? If not us, then who?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to actually make the hard votes and make it so that everything we do going forward is paid for as much as we possibly can. If it's out there to rescind and claw that money back to pay for something, that's what needs to happen. Otherwise, I don't think we can call ourselves fiscally responsible.
Y'all were sitting in the room last week. I had to go back and look at history, and that wasn't something I knew anecdotally the story. First Democrat elected president since the Civil War was Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland had an incident. He needed Texas to put him back in the White House. And they had a drought in Texas, and Democrat President Grover Cleveland vetoed a disaster package because he basically said, we can't do this. And so we have moved now. Most people don't even realize there was a day where FEMA didn't exist until 1979. We don't know our history. And so both Democrats and Republicans have got to come back to the premise of what is the role of government, what is supposed to be left to the states to solve their problem. And so what you're talking about is paying for disaster.
Right.
Man, the founding era would look at us and go, you ought to, at a minimal, start there.
Exactly.
Right.
You're right. You're 100% right.
What other things, in this next administration are you guys excited about? I know for me, I'm excited about the Make America Healthy Again and the opportunity to reform the healthcare system.
I'm excited about nationwide concealed carry.
Would love that.
I think that has been on the docket for so many years. Nationwide concealed carry. I mean, it's a constitutional right.
Versus it being state, that's
Right.
Second
I mean,
Amendment.
we have driver's licenses that are recognized in every state.
Why not nationwide constitutional carry?
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
To me, the Constitution is
You
my
know?
permit to carry.
That's it.
And it doesn't,
That's
it's
right.
not like the Constitution goes away when I enter Illinois.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, nationwide constitutional carry. I would agree with that 100%.
Of course, I'm South Texas, so closing that border is going to be big. Securing American energy again, and us being dominant in energy, and what that means for our economy, of course, but what it means from a national security standpoint and what we're able to provide for our allies. Right now, the world's having to make this decision between China and the United States. And with the current State Department, they've had to be like, well, we like the U.S., we like your history of freedom, everything you've meant over history, but right now you're getting a lecture about transgenderism and all this kind of stuff. And you go to China, you have to deal with communism, but they're helping us with roads, bridges, whatever, and that's the choice the world has had right now. I've heard that from a number of different ambassadors. And so for us to be able to be there to provide energy for the world is going to be extremely important. It's going to help strengthen the dollar as well.
It's great that the president is talking about that. He sees and understands the intrinsic value of a strong dollar. It's something he's continued to talk about. Look, yes, the spending, but I'm also excited about his promise that he made in his New York speech 2 months ago, where he said, what he showcased as president from 16 to 20 was for every regulation, he cut 2. His promise in New York was for every regulation, we're going to cut 10. That will unleash the economic boom that's been drowned out by this catalytic converter that is drowned in the engine that wants to roar in America. And there's a Mercatus study that says if you just go back to the 1980 level of regulations in this country, that you'd have a $4 trillion boost to the economy. It would be about $10,000 in the pocket of every worker. If you look at a chart since the 1960s and you look at where we were in the 80s on regulations, and there's a chart that my staff got access to, or at least I think I forwarded it to them, but we're twice the amount of regulations we were in the 50s and 60s, and twice on top of that since 1980. And it's a perpetual climb of bureaucratic control.
Which is one of the reasons we need a shrink government. I know in our discussions on approach, we get to a certain point and they're like, well, if you cut it that much, we're going to have to fire people. And we're like, yes, that's
yes, please.
That's the goal. That's a feature.
Yes,
It's not about
make it smaller, a lot smaller.
That's what we're trying to get to. Okay, let's because you have people sitting around and now they're to the point they're not even really many of the regulators who are regulating industries have never worked in those industries.
Yeah.
They're going straight from some university where they've learned how to protest and taken all these weird courses on intersectionality and whatever. Then they go straight into regulating some industry that they've never worked in and just don't even know how.
And then they don't even
works.
show up for work.
And and they're teleworking.
They're
Yes,
teleworking,
exactly.
working from home, which is apparently 90+% of the federal workforce is not coming in to work.
Yeah, and the pace it takes, China can build a road like in a tenth of the time it takes us to get a permit. Sometimes, it's.
I mean, the Pentagon was
unbelievable.
built in less than a year.
Right.
A year. Think about that. The Pentagon in early 1940s, before the end of World War II, and I mean,
They didn't have to do any environmental studies. They didn't have to research the bats that might be impacted and all that.
It's amazing though what we can do if we
decide to do
get
it.
ourselves out of the way.
Exactly.
Get the government out of the way.
Stop stepping on our own feet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I'm also worried that we're going to let the American people down.
That's why I said the expectation is very high. I hope we can meet that expectation. I want to. With everything I've got, I want to make that happen.
Yeah. When Obamacare was when they attempted to repeal it, when we did have
the votes to do it,
and it didn't happen, I don't think most people look back and remember that was all basically on John McCain and a handful of senators because the House did their job. They just look at all Republicans and say, you guys are losers. You didn't.
Well, they call it the lost GOP decade. I think the only major piece of reform we got done was the Tax
Cuts and Jobs Act
policy, which was good policy, but we're up here dealing with it again because many of the provisions were temporary, and we all believe like this is our last big best chance. And thank God. I think if any of us think about where we could have been at this point, we're all like, thank you, Lord. But at the same time, you think we have, folks at home probably think 4 years, but it's actually, we know 2 years before the next election cycle when maybe the House or Senate flip, if we don't do our job. 6 months before that, people are going to be candidates. So we got an 18-month window here where we've got to really, really make a difference and make good on our promise to the American people.
And I think that the conversation, I can see this happening already, is in the basement where we're in a conference meeting. You're going to have the moderates go to the microphone and say, we can't do this. We'll lose the next election. We'll lose the majority. We can't do these tough things. And we're going to be going to the microphone and saying, folks, if we don't do these tough things, we're going to lose the majority.
That's
Right.
That's what's the nation.
And not only are we going to lose the majority, we're going to lose the country.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly. We're going to go to that microphone and say, if we don't do these things, we're going to lose the country. Forget about the majority. We're going to lose the country. So we have to do these things. And I'm sorry, moderates, you're going to have to come along with us.
That's where the naughty list, with the power of X and the social media platform that Elon Musk has, I am excited about him weighing all in with the number of days that he's spending, at least by what we see on TV at Mar-a-Lago, that him in the year of President Trump, Vivek in the year of President Trump, that it's not enough just to extend the tax cuts. When you've lost 25% of the dollar value just since January 2020, then everything that happened in 2017 for child tax credits, doubling the standard deduction, then you're losing, every family's losing how much dollar is in their pocket. And so it's not enough just to let people keep more of their tax dollars. We've got to stop devaluing the currency by overspending. I hope that we can find a way to message that. It's not enough just to give you an extension of these tax cuts.
Oh, sure.
We've got to cut off the spending valve so we stop the erosion of what dollars you've got in its purchasing power.
Deficit spending equals inflation. I think that was one thing that Elon Musk said on Thursday last week. Deficit spending equals inflation. And,
Period.
And period. That's it. And that message has to go out loud and clear to everybody. When we have deficit spending, it devalues our dollar because we have inflation. It creates inflation. And we're now $36 trillion in debt, spending more interest every year than we spend on the entire Department of Defense.
Well, and the good news is, heading into this next season, is the American people have spoken loud and clear.
Yes.
And President Trump was not shy about what he plans to do. He was a reform candidate. He's going to come in and drain the swamp. We're going to make America great again. We're going to tackle the woke, weaponized, the corruption. These are themes that everybody knows that's what President Trump stands for, and they went and supported it. So anyone not willing to get behind, we can talk about the Senate and the, what they're having to deal with, the nominations and stuff. The American people were very clear, and President Trump was very honest about what his agenda was. And the American people said that's what we want. And so if that does not give Republicans the backbone, and hopefully a handful of Democrats too, to do what we need to do in this hour, I don't know what we will, but I believe we'll get there.
I believe we will. The eternal optimist.
Well, it's going to be a fight, and I can't wait to go into the trenches with you guys.
Go into the ring.
Yeah.
Go into the ring.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you to our listeners. If you found today's show insightful, show us some love. Smash the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can catch the Fresh Freedom Podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, X, and Rumble. Stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for freedom.